You remember your first Slurpee. Cherry red, brain freeze cold on a hot summer day. But what you might not remember is how close it came to disappearing. In 1991, 7-Eleven was $1.8 billion in debt, hours from going out of business and killing the Slurpee forever. But then, their Japan division called and rewrote American history. This is the story of how Japan rescued an American icon and made it better than the original. Dallas, 1927. One blazing afternoon, Joe Thompson watched a mother walk 3 blocks to buy ice, then ask if they had milk. They didn't. The next day, another customer asked for bread, then cigarettes. It hit him. They weren't shopping for ice. They were shopping for life. So Thompson convinced his boss at the Southland Corporation to keep one ice house open from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. and stock it with essentials. Neighbors noticed. The lines grew. He hadn't just changed store hours, he'd invented something nobody had words for yet: convenience. By the 1960s, this experiment had grown into something unprecedented. 7-Eleven stores dot American suburbs like convenience lighthouses, open when grocery stores sleep, stocked with everything you forgot to buy. Then, in 1966, the Slurpee. Borrowed from a Kansas Dairy Queen, just a frozen soda machine, until teenagers turned it into a ritual, a freezing syrup flood. Blue tongues, brain freeze as bragging rights. It wasn't a drink, it was an identity. Within a decade, 7-Eleven was selling 40 million Slurpees a year and had created its own culture. But by the 1980s, Southland Corporation's stock price was underperforming. The 80s were defined by corporate raiders like Carl Icahn and T. Boone Pickens, who saw struggling companies as ripe targets.
Point is, ladies and gentlemen, that greed, for lack of a better word, is good.
A corporate raider quietly buys small blocks of a company's shares until he owns just under 5%. Staying below that 5% line lets him avoid disclosing to the public his position. As soon as he crosses that 5%, he files the required notice, and the news alone can lift the share price. Next, he lines up banks to borrow a large sum, promising lenders that the company's future earnings will repay the debt, and offers every shareholder a higher-than-market cash price for their shares. If the raider can convince enough shareholders of his offer and he passes 50%, he gains full control of the company. Once in charge, he may sell assets or cut costs so the company, not the raider, pays off the takeover loan, letting him capture control or a quick profit while risking relatively little of his own money. In December of 1987, Southland faced such a takeover bid from a Canadian billionaire, Samuel Belzberg. How did Southland respond? Rather ironically, Southland management hatched a similar plan. Southland's managers did what's called a leveraged buyout, where they borrow money to buy out all the other shareholders and delist the company from public exchanges. First, they lined up $2.6 billion in bank loans from Citibank and others, secured by the chain's stores, gas outlets, and real estate. These senior loans would be repaid first out of day-to-day cash flow. Then, they stacked on $2.2 billion in unsecured junk bonds, sold through none other than Goldman Sachs and Salomon Brothers. Southland had to pay buyers an eye-popping up to 18% interest to compensate for the risk. All told, roughly $4.8 billion of the $4.9 billion price tag was debt, leaving the Thompson family and other insiders to supply only a small token of their own money. After the buyout, Southland reported a shocking $60.9 million loss in Q2 1988. Not from fewer customers at the counter, but from servicing the mountain of debt crushing the company, even though stores still turned profits. Management responded with layoffs and frozen stock budgets. District managers began implementing operating restrictions. Can you afford to fix the slurpee machine? These were the symptoms of a business being strangled by its own debt. Southland averted takeover by the Canadian Raiders, but borrowing so heavily planted a landmine under the company's future. Backing up a bit, the first Japanese 7-Eleven opens in Tokyo in 1974. It fails spectacularly. Japanese customers don't understand American convenience culture.
But that right there, ladies and gentlemen, is the first 7-Eleven in Japan.
Why shop at a tiny store when department stores offer everything? A former book buyer named Toshifumi Suzuki managed the project for Ito-Yokado, a run-of-the-mill grocery store chain in Japan. He used his book buyer experience to dissect the American 7-Eleven experience. American 7-Eleven, stock everything, hope customers buy. Japanese 7-Eleven, track everything and know that customers will buy.
Why is 7-Eleven Japan so much better? How do they do all this amazing food? How are they so successful over here? The secret is right there. An information system that is cutting edge. We borrowed the technology for the United States, but 7-Eleven Japan still stays ahead of everybody else in the world.
Suzuki installed point-of-sale systems that captured microscopic data. What sells on rainy Tuesday? Which snacks move during exam season? How does foot traffic change near train stations? In 1982, daily delivery trucks replace weekly shipments. Stores receive fresh inventory based on real-time demand patterns. 1985, quality control becomes obsessive. Rice balls must be perfect. Coffee must be fresh. By 1988, 7-Eleven Japan's profits exceed those of its American parent company. Meanwhile, in the 1980s, Japan's economy wasn't just rising, it was shooting past the stratosphere. The US invested heavily in reconstructing Japan after World War II, and by the 1980s, Japan's export machine was running at full capacity. Western finance ministers hatched the Plaza Accord to hike up the yen and cool Tokyo's export machine. Japanese exporters suddenly earned fewer dollars abroad and far more yen at home. Therefore, profits piled up in Tokyo instead of being reinvested overseas. Banks, awash in these deposits, slashed lending rates to almost giveaway levels, so companies could borrow cheaply. Land prices in the capital climbed higher than Manhattan's. Easy money created one question: where do we stash all this cash? Most Japanese conglomerates chose to shop the world. Mitsubishi Estate paid $846 million for a stake in New York's Rockefeller Center. Sony spent $3.4 billion on Columbia Pictures. US newspapers, stunned by the buying spree, asked whether Japan was quietly buying up America. Most hunted trophies, but Ito-Yokado chose perfection of its retail model. So when the market turned and the Japan bubble burst in 1990, Ito-Yokado was one of the few firms that had the ability to go big and still deal. To avoid takeover, Southland was levered to the hilt. Those junk bonds required roughly $180 million in interest every year. Southland's convenience store cash flow looked able to cover that in boom times, but there wasn't much margin for error. Only 2 years later, 1989 and 1990, US real estate values crashed and interest rates climbed. Store traffic weakened, profits shrank, and the resale value of Southland's property, collateral for many of the loans, fell just when lenders grew nervous. With sales soft and borrowing costs rising, almost every available dollar went to service debt instead of operations. That meant less money for inventory, renovations, or new stores, so revenue slipped further, creating a vicious cycle. Selling assets to raise cash was hard in a down market, and refinancing was impossible at reasonable rates. The company was gasping for air because it was trapped between big interest bills and falling income. They scrambled for a lifeline and called 7-Eleven Japan. buy 75% of us for $400 million, and hey, service that $1.8 billion debt while you're at it. Desperate? Absolutely. Japan's answer was a simple no. 7-Eleven Japan was waiting, patiently, calculating. The sharks circled, but they watched as the waves grew higher. Then, the inevitable. Southland crashed into Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and that's when Japan made its move. In March of 1991, 7-Eleven Japan and Ito-Yokado swept in, acquiring 70% of Southland. The price? $430 million of pure cash. No toxic debt, no legacy headaches, just a clean slate. While everyone else tried catching a falling knife, Suzuki waited for the knife to hit the floor. This was the deal of his lifetime. But wait, after they took over the company, that's when the real work would start. Suzuki toured the American stores. Immediately, it's chaos. Random products, mystery inventory, employees who look as bewildered as the customers. No data, no systems, no clue. So what's the playbook? Step 1, roll out point-of-sale tech. Everywhere. Instantly, real-time inventory. Guesswork is over. Step 2, standardize operations. Every store, every shift, identical procedures. No exceptions. Step 3, fix the food. Fresh coffee, spotless counters, real food that doesn't scare you. Step 4, train every employee until stellar service becomes automatic. Pushback is fierce. The American franchisees groan, but eventually accept. And it works! By 1995, American 7-Eleven is turning a profit, and by 2000, it's expanding. "7-Eleven in Asia didn't just beat the original. It created a model far more complex and profitable. While American stores still push Lotto, soda, and yesterday's donuts, Asian outlets, by contrast, sold a variety of tasty fresh foods, helped customers handle life's chores end to end. Pay your taxes, fax a contract, get your packages, do simple groceries. Everything happens at one counter. How can a single location stretch that far? Each branch runs on a super clerk model. One employee rotates through cashier, barista, short order cook, parcel agent, ATM, custodian, and janitor. Therefore, 6 jobs collapse into one. The most skilled minimum wage worker ever. It sounds inhuman by American standards, and yet, it works. Not because of hustle culture, but because the entire urban system bends to support it. Dense cities allow trucks to restock up to 6 times a day. Rice balls arrive 30 minutes before rush hour and leave the shelf before they lose their sheen. Yesterday's cash gets recycled into today's ATM. Logistics do the heavy lifting. The clerk just rides the wave. So yes, the food is amazing.
Why is it so good?
I would 100% buy this again. So good.
These corn dogs taste better than back home.
But the real miracle is the people behind the counter. Ultimately, the money followed the marvel. 7-Eleven Japan grew so profitable, it bought the remaining US shares in 2005. The student didn't merely surpass the master, it ended up owning the classroom. Asia's headline revenues continue to stand out. Casual investors assume 7-Eleven is bulletproof, yet the shine comes from radical localization, the very feature now straining the system. In Seoul, try to get a tea egg.
Korean tourists are quite afraid to enter convenience stores in Taiwan.
Why is that exactly? Isn't that just tea eggs?
When I first came to Taiwan, I noticed a distinct smell in convenience stores. It made me uneasy, and I realized it was from the eggs. Even now, many people say convenience stores have this smell, and it makes them nervous.
This is a must-have for Taiwanese breakfast.
I used to be afraid to try it, but now when I walk in and smell that scent, I don't have any story about it.
A Taiwan convenience store stable. Not gonna happen. Thailand's outlets double as all-night cafes. Taiwan and the Philippines run cash recycling ATMs that absorb yesterday's cash earnings before dawn. Seoul experiments with premium Wagyu and cheese sandwiches at 2 a.m. Each win demands unique suppliers, software, and training, so global scale economies vanish. Compare that to Starbucks. Starbucks expands by engineering familiarity. Step in an outlet in Milan or Manila, and the furniture, playlist, and caramel macchiato match Seattle almost to the gram. Consistency simplifies everything. Training manuals are identical, syrup suppliers negotiate on continent-wide volumes, and barista tasks top out at 4 or 5. Minor nods to some gratuitous localization, a matcha latte in Kyoto, a red bean frappuccino in Shenzhen. Overall, they ride on the same global chassis, so economies of scale stay intact. Meanwhile, North America remains the weak flank. Urban outlets face theft surges that wipe out thin margins. Rural towns lack the foot traffic density that justifies 6 daily deliveries. Shelves sit half empty while delivery costs climb. The Dallas prototype no longer fits a continent splintered by e-commerce and labor shortages. Into that vulnerability stepped Alimentation Couche-Tard.
And we're going to switch gears, talk about merger Monday, a massive deal on the horizon. Circle K operator Couche-Tard making a bid to take over rival and 7-Eleven owner 7&I. This deal would be the biggest foreign takeover of a Japanese company.
7-Eleven's second Canadian suitor. In 2024, it offered roughly $39 billion later lifted to $47 billion for 7&I Holdings, the parent company of 7-Eleven, arguing a merged 20-country network would restore purchasing power and unify tech. 7&I's board thanked Couche-Tard for the offer, ran the numbers, and said no. They doubted a cost-driven North American chain could mesh with a Japanese network that also serves low-margin social services, so the cultures looked too far apart to merge smoothly, even at a higher price. The bid's failure leaves the central question unanswered. Will corporate Japan admit that fresh ideas and fresh capital are needed to knit 70 countries into one resilient future? Or will they continue about their current ways? Thanks for watching, and as always, mata ne, and I'll see you in the next one.